Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Post Up with David Grubb right here on Boo Crew Media. Hope you're having a good Monday. Glad you could join me. Make sure you hit that like button, leave your comments and questions as well as we go through what was a good weekend for the New Orleans Pelicans, winning back-to-back road games for the first time this season. Two good road wins at that. One in beating Memphis, yes, without Ja Morant. We'll talk about him a little bit later too, but um, Memphis is a team the Pelicans certainly have struggled with over as of late. Certainly, they struggle with everybody, but with the Grizzlies in particular, they've had a tough time lately. They pull off a very good win, offensively explosive in that game, and then you come back and you take on the San Antonio Spurs, a team that have been fantastic at home this season, a team that is considered one of the contenders to be not only the Western Conference champion but the NBA champion this year. And then you go into their building, you build a substantial lead, you hold that lead through three quarters, then you have a collapse. But unlike what we've seen out of the Pelicans so many times before, they rally and come back and get a good win, a good win on the road against the Spurs. And what's been interesting is in all three of those Spurs games, the center position has been so important. Obviously, it is because of Victor Wembanyama, but the Pelicans in each of those games. In the first game, they fouled out Wembanyama, had a chance to win the game, didn't do it. The second game, Pelicans got in a lot of foul trouble, didn't win the game. This game, you thought maybe you would see it again with the Pelicans picking up that early foul trouble in this game in the front court. Queen picking up fouls. Carlo picking up a bunch of fouls really quickly. Even Eve picking up a couple of fouls early in that first half. And you had to be concerned for a moment there that the Pelicans were not going to have enough on the interior against the team that has dominated them on the glass previously, particularly Luke Kornet and Victor Wembanyama. So the Pelicans, in order to beat the Spurs, did all of the things that they typically don't do well. They didn't turn the ball over. They shot the ball pretty well from three. They limited the Spurs to just about 41% shooting for the game, which is something, again, we talked about with the Pelicans time and time again. Typically, they're allowing teams to shoot 45, 46, 48% on a nightly basis. They held the Spurs, a team that has dynamic offensive players, to 41%. They limited Victor Wembanyama's influence on that game. He had a couple blocks, but those were in succession really in the first half. Outside of that, he didn't stop Zion Williamson on the interior. Saddiq Bey was able to get going. Trey Murphy was able to get going. So the Pelicans did their job against the Spurs. That is a legitimate win because they played well in the areas that they typically don't. They did not turn the ball over and give up points in transition. They won on the glass. They assisted on more than half of their attempts. So all of the things you wanted to see, though the score was a lot lower, but you're playing against a team that does excel in the half court. So what the Pelicans did was beat a team in the Spurs at their own game, particularly. The Spurs are a better defensive team. The Spurs are a better half-court team. The Spurs are a better three-point shooter. The Spurs are just a better team. And the Pelicans did everything that they were supposed to do to make this possible and win that game. So now they've got a two-game winning streak. And you're going into a game with Oklahoma City, which, again, feels like an overmatched contest. But I thought that was going to be the case against San Antonio. This is that time of the NBA season that gets very tricky for teams as they prepare for the trade deadline, as they think about the All-Star break. The deadline's just 9 days away, 10 days away, from today. So you look at those types of things. You see teams, guys are kind of tired mentally, teams that have done really well. This is the chance for the Pelicans, if they want to continue to prove something here, if they want to continue to raise people's trade value, if that's what the goal is right now. A win against the Oklahoma City Thunder certainly would do a lot for everybody on this roster. It would do a lot for every member of this team who is contributing right now. And there are several players over the last couple of games who are contributing at a high level, and we need to talk about them. But no player, I'm going to give you a quick shout out. What's up, Lee? Glad to have you as usual. Glad to see so many familiar names in the room as we do. 75 in the chat. Make sure we get those likes up as well. But the guy that I want to talk about certainly, and who's been playing outstanding basketball as of late, has been playing good basketball throughout the season, but has really taken it up to a new level over these last couple of games is Saddiq Bey. And I'm gonna give you Sadiq's numbers these last 2 games, and they're just, outstanding, and present a real dilemma for the Pelicans. Over the last 2 games, 30 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists. He's shooting 56% from 3, and he has 0 turnovers in those 2 games. You can't ask for more from him, than what you're getting, and his value this year, considering the contract that he has, considering what the Pelicans expected from him. They expected him to be a solidifying force on the bench, but I don't think the Pelicans expected him to be starting the way that they have, the amount of games that he's been playing. I don't think that the Pelicans expected Saddiq Bey to be challenging as a vital contributor in this in starting lineups. And you have to give, people have been hard on James Borrego as this team went into a terrible spiral for a good while. You have to give Borrego some credit, though, for sidelining the rookies a little bit as they've struggled, and we'll talk about that too. But moving the rookies and putting them, as they've struggled, hey, you can't be on the floor if you're not going to do the things that it takes to win basketball games. You can't play meaningful minutes. You've got to earn them. This is the NBA. So I appreciate him doing that, but I also appreciate him adjusting the starting lineup. The subtle change of adding Herb Jones to the starting lineup, even over these 2 games, and you could look at his shooting numbers, and they're awful shooting numbers. 4.5 points per game, 31% from 3. Herb is not shooting the ball well. But again, Herb Jones's value has never been limited to what he shoots. Because in these games, too, it's no coincidence that they've won both of these games since Herb has been back and was put in the starting lineup. Because with Herb Jones on the floor, he's also given the Pelicans 3.5 assists, 1 steal, and 2 blocks per game over these last 2 games. 2 blocks per game. The Pelicans are plus 11 in these 2 games with Herb Jones on the floor. The only person higher is Saddiq Bey at 13.5. So over these last 2 games, it's been the role players, which the Pelicans have needed this season to step up in these circumstances. The role players all season long have failed to live up to their roles, to give the stars on this team the kind of support they need on a nightly basis. Saddiq Bey has picked it up. Saddiq Bey has performed admirably, but now he's performing like a frontline player again. And then you're also getting the consistency that you've gotten over this past month from Trey Murphy. You're getting an improved Zion Williamson over these last couple games, a Zion who suddenly, after all we've talked about with him this season, all of a sudden Zion has the burst back. The athleticism is back. Okay, so that part has been a good development and a bad one. And I'm going to do this. Kind of wonder why I say Zion hasn't been good when it's clear the organization has gone away with him. He hasn't been good this season. He hasn't been good this season, not compared to the Zion that we've seen. And the organization did not go away from him. The organization made every effort this season to make him the franchise player. What didn't they do? Why did the organization, how did the organization go away from him compared to Zion going away from the organization by not playing up to his level of play? For 4 straight years, his numbers had been going down. His efficiency as a shooter had been going down. His reboundings had been going down. His defensive numbers had been slightly improving. But offensively, over the last 4 years, that's why I say, compared to those games last year when Zion was at his best, we didn't see any of those outside of the first couple of games this season when he seemed really engaged on the defensive end, but he wasn't shooting the ball well on offense. He was shooting below 50% the first couple of games of the season. So finally, what you're seeing with Zion Williamson these last 2 games has allowed him to start showing the physical parts of his game that weren't there. Now, maybe these were lingering effects from the things that we heard about his injuries in the beginning of the year. Maybe that's what we're getting, that he's finally, and we had not heard throughout the season that there had been some lingering effects from the injuries that he reported, the abductor and the hamstring. Yeah, This is insane. Okay. Z's so good shooting 45%, 47% from the field. Yeah, 47% from the field for your guy who plays inside the paint, who is second in the NBA in points per game in the paint, who was shooting at Shaquille O'Neal levels at the early part of his career. It's not funny that he's down to shooting that he was down to shooting 41%, 47%. It's not good that he's shooting only 52% from the floor this season. Like, the impact has decreased, and I don't understand. This is the part that perplexes me, is that we're constantly searching for reasons that people don't do their jobs. He's the superstar. He's the franchise player. If you choose to step back as the franchise player, and the rookies do not all have the green light, and I will talk about that in a second too. But this stuff is insane from y'all. And the free throw attempts, this is nonsense too. Zion is in the top 8 in free throw attempts in the NBA. The Pelicans get a lot of free throw attempts relative to the rest of the league because they score so many points in the paint. Like, the numbers don't illustrate what you're saying. The Pelicans have been top 10 in free throw attempts this year, all year long. All year long. I went through those numbers last week. You can go look at them. Go look at the numbers. See, I'll just, you're going off of stuff. And if you think that Zion, who is the leader of the team, if you are the superstar player, people are looking you off. And I've talked about this too. If you're the superstar player, people look at you off. You don't have enough clout on your own team. You don't stand up and say, I got to get the ball. What franchise player do you know that doesn't do that? All right, let's get back to Bey. Thank you, Brian. We get back to Saddiq Bey. But Saddiq Bey, the interesting thing about Saddiq Bey, going back to him. So when you talk about what Bey has done, we came in on this contract, has one more year in his contract, has had multiple 30-point games for the Pelicans, both coming out as a starter and as off the bench, has shown that he can be at times a prolific outside scorer, has had some big nights shooting the three, has shown that he has a post-up game, a mid-range game. But his value, as much as he's helping the Pelicans win right now, when we talk about the trade deadline on February 5th, and we've seen that the Pelicans, who they will not move, it seems like you've got to move Bey now. His value will never be higher than it is right now. And as for a team that is in desperate need of assets and has still not figured out its direction, I wonder if it's time to sell. Because I see why you would say this. That Saddiq should be a part of the future. But let's remember, Saddiq is in what, year 7? So he's like, what, 20, 26, 27 years old? He is entering what he would think are the prime years of his career. For a team that's still 2 years away, is keeping him worth what you could be giving up on the open market? 26 years old. I hear what you're saying, that he's the same age as Trey and Z, but he's not going to be in 2 years his contract value, and he's going to ask for more money in 2 years, certainly. Next year, going into an expiring contract. He's got the Pelicans, who have no financial flexibility right now because of the bad deals that they have. You've got to find a way to get more assets. You've got to find a way to get taller. You've got to find a way to get more playmaking. You've got to find a way to get cheaper. And Bey presents an interesting conundrum, because what is the price that you would be willing to accept for Saddiq Bey? If someone offers you a first rounder, are you turning that down for Saddiq Bey? And I don't know if you could do that. If someone's giving the Pelicans a first rounder, a team that is in dire need of those picks, I don't know if you can keep him around. I think he's absolutely a luxury you can't afford. The same is with Jose, another asset, luxury item that you can't afford. So I think with Saddiq Bey, and this is the issue, and I agree with you, D. It's hard to give the bird to him. You don't trust the front office to get you to the bush later. I agree with you, and that's very difficult. It's very difficult anytime we discuss the Pelicans and any players that are on this roster. It's because trying to understand what Joe Dumars and Troy Weaver are doing is still really hard to do. Shout out to quickly, let's give a shout out to Matthew, new member. We appreciate you, Matthew. Welcome. But it's really hard to do to understand where Dumars and the rest of this front office want to take this team, because the signals are mixed. Now, the one thing that is not a mixed signal, right, is what's going on with Jordan Poole. It's over. It's over. It's over. The DNP-CD. The DNP-CD, that's the end. When you have a healthy scratch of a guy who's making $30 million per year, it's done. The worst part of this is the way he's behaving now. You can be frustrated, man. I get it. And I don't even want to deal with the facts of where his game has gone, because it's completely taken a nosedive. When you just look at the last month for him, we're talking about 11 points per game, 35% from the field goal field, from the field, 35% shooting from the field over the last month. And then you see him when the team is having timeouts, he's shooting shots on the basket. He's no longer in the huddles. He's no longer, he's more interested in the half-court shots than he is what's going on with the team. The concern before the season was, if things go well with Jordan Poole, great. But if they go bad, they're going to go really bad. You can go check the tape. I said it. If they go bad, they're going to go really bad. And they've gone really bad. They've gone really bad. And it is, I absolutely agree. His shot selection, awful. His defense, unconscionable. His effort, mentally. What game has he been playing when he's been on the court lately? He's playing a different basketball game than everybody else on the floor when he gets in. He had a game where he played 12 minutes and got off like 10 shots. In 12 minutes, made two or three of them. He is not playing the same game as everybody else. And James Borrego now, he's got to do these things. Borrego has to draw a line. No one has ever drawn a line for any of these guys before with the Pelicans. No one has drawn a line. And what we're seeing now is that the Pelicans are starting to draw some lines. They've done it with the rookies in cutting back their minutes because they haven't been productive. They've done it with Jordan Poole by sitting him down. They moved Herb Jones back into the starting lineup. They have taken, they've gotten now these. I think Zion with this group has played better all season long. And then you see a resurgence for Yves Missi in the last couple of weeks too. James Borrego has decided that he's trying to win some basketball games, and that winning is important. And I believe that it is. You cannot lose your way into winning. If you are trying to lose, you will be a loser. You can be a bad team that's trying to win. You don't have enough talent, but you can play like you want to win games. You can coach like you want to win games. This is the problem with Jordan Poole, is that he came into a team and was supposed to be a leader. He was sold as a leader, that everybody was following Jordan Poole's lead in the preseason. Well, maybe that wasn't such a good thing because they did not start the season well. They did not come in with a sense of urgency, and now we are where we are with this team, and everything is still up for grabs. So Jordan Poole, it looks like the concern now is this is very much like the Eric Bledsoe situation, is it not? You have a player who's making too much money, making too little contributions, whose attitude now seems completely indifferent to helping the organization. You got to get that guy out of the building as fast as possible. The problem is no one wants him. So you've got to attach assets to Jordan Poole to get him out of here. Who is that asset going to be? Because you may have to give up Saddiq Bey to get rid of Jordan Poole. You may have to give up Yves Missi to get rid of Jordan Poole. You may have to give up a legitimate player, not one of your throwaways. See this right here. Why would I respect what you're trying to do here, but why would the Grizzlies take Jordan Poole? If they're trying to shop Ja, they're trying to shop an undisciplined player, right? Why would you take Poole for $34 million that's on his contract next year? Looney, I see, that's throwaway. We're talking about $9.5 million. But you can't be giving up more firsts. And I know you said 2030, but these New Orleans Pelicans, when is that first not going to be great? It's not salary relief for the Grizzlies to have Jordan Poole's $34 million next year and then to be in a position where they can't really offload him. I mean, yeah, you could say they were going to the last year of his contract, but can you take on? Yes, I know Looney has the team option. That's why I said Looney could be interesting, but you can't tag two bad assets in a pick. You can't tag two bad assets in a pick. Somebody will take one, but nobody's taking $60 million of your bad assets just for one first rounder. It's no team, because the way the financial penalties are, that's what you got to think about. You cannot have players. That's why the Pelicans are in such a bad position, is having multiple players on your roster who you're paying that are not contributing. And if you're thinking that you're going to have Poole on that team, a team in the Grizzlies that's trying to fix its own identity, that's the wrong guy to add. Because now if you're going to build around Triple J and you're going to build around Edie and you're going to start, that's the team you're putting together. Jordan Poole sets you back. But what you've got to, this is the problem. You've got to attach good assets to bad to get these guys out of here. And you've got multiple bad assets you've got to get rid of. That's the biggest problem for the Pelicans, because you got to attach a good asset to DeJounte Murray, who, good for DeJounte, had time to go see the Seattle, was at home watching the Seattle Seahawks win the NFC Championship. I don't know why he's not in New Orleans. I don't know why he's not with the team. If he was, we thought we still have gotten no reports on him and his status. So clearly you've got to add assets to get rid of DeJounte Murray. You've got to add assets to get rid of Jordan Poole. So how many good assets do you have to give away? You've got really three good players who teams are looking to get, right? Not outside of your Herb and Trey. You got three players that teams want. Jose Alvarado. Let's move on to the last banner anyway. Jose Alvarado, Saddiq Bey, and Yves Missi. Those are the three players that you have as real potential trade chips to get rid of these bad deals. So how can you potentially pair those to do it? How do you get the math with a team that wants to take on these bad deals? Who's willing to take the risk on DeJounte Murray? Is it Sacramento maybe? Because that's what you've got to start thinking of too. Who's going to look at those? See, here's the problem with Jose and Murray for the future verse. Jose has a player option. So you could trade for Jose if you're Memphis and he opts out. You lose that asset. So you've given up Ja, you give Murray Murray in Memphis. I don't know. Maybe. Jose's part contract, he would probably he'd either have to agree to opt out before he did it so that they could not have that additional money on the deal. I think that's what would have to be the case because if Jose opted in and you've got to take in $37 million for two guys, yeah, it feels that thing. But if you're Memphis again too, if DeJounte doesn't fit, that's a big risk. So I wonder. Fit is the hardest thing with all these guys. Because when we do the look and we say, who's looking for these guys? Who's looking for Jordan Poole that's willing to give you something for him? What team is going to say, I'm taking Jordan Poole right now? It's not going to be Phil. Like you have to look for a team that's not good because a good team's not taking him right now because he hasn't been able to shoot and he's making boneheaded plays. That film doesn't work for anybody. So it's not going to be a good team. So what bad team is willing to take it? Are you talking to Utah? Maybe Minnesota, who's not bad, but could maybe use some additional scoring punch. It's a difficult proposition. It's a difficult proposition to find people to take them. And I would absolutely agree with you that Washington was happy that the Pelicans took the Poole contract because they flipped it ultimately. They flipped Jordan Poole ultimately for Trae Young. Whatever your opinion is of Trae Young, if you can flip Jordan Poole for Trae Young for essentially nothing, you do that deal, right? So you turned Jordan Poole into Trae Young. So yeah, the Wizards are certainly glad that the Pelicans took their problem off their hands. And all they had to really give up was Saddiq Bey, who was coming off injury. So yeah, if you're the Wizards, yeah, it worked out fantastic for you. And yes, Looney has a team option next year. Yes, absolutely. So that's the best thing about the Looney deal is that they have a team option for him. So, for Looney, it's hard because I don't know what his value is to a non-winning team. I think if Looney's going to somebody, it would be as a playoff reinforcement. I think that if you're shopping Looney, you may want to go back to the Knicks because if the Knicks are interested in Yves Missi, which they are, and they can't get that deal done because they don't have the contract value. And I know they want to try to give the Pelicans Yabusele. If that's been the report that they try to give up Gershon Yabusele, that's not enough for Yves Missi. So maybe you go back to the Knicks and you say, look, y'all need backup big, we'll give you Kavan. And we'll take Yabusele for Kavan. I think that would be I think that would be a better maybe fit there. But these Eve deals, they are Eve's value continues to rise for the Pelicans. He's been the team's best player over the last month by on-court impact. Nobody's had more on-court impact over the last month than Yves Missi. He beats Trae by a significant number. There are only 3 players who have been a positive in January, and Herb hasn't played enough games for it to count. But Trae and Eve are the only 2 players, and Micah Peavy, I think, is also in that group, who've been net positives throughout this month. And we've seen the impact for Eve as he did it again against the Spurs. He continues to show that he's a better player than he had been. And just to illustrate the impact of some of these guys, particularly Bey and Missi, right? And I'm with you. I think it's time to keep it. You don't have another shot blocking big. You don't have a lot of defensive bigs. You're the worst front court in the league. Eve is proving that his value to the Pelicans is still very high. And his contract, a controlled cost rookie contract, low in the first round. Even if you had to max out Eve at the end of his rookie deal, it's still going to be, for a starting caliber NBA center, it's still going to be a really cheap deal. So the desire to trade Eve, especially when you look at his statistical impact defensively, it just doesn't make any sense anymore to get rid of him. The two best lineups for the Pelicans as of late. The best lineup has been Zion, Bey, Herb, Trey, and Eve. 141.4 offensive rating with that group. Defensively, 88.5. That's a net rating of almost plus 60. Plus 60 for those guys. The next highest group, Zion, Bey, Herb, Trey, and Queen. 132.7 offensively, 118.5 defensively. Not nearly as good in either category, but still pretty solid, but it's a significant drop down. 14.2 from almost 60. And the only thing you change from that group is inserting Eve Messi. 4 starters, you change out Queen and you put in Messi in that group, and they become an elite defensive team and a great offensive team as of late. Because Zion has played better, because Trey is already hot, because all the Bey is playing well, and Messi's playing well. So those guys are elevating that lineup. The problem is, again, you've had this huge rookie regression. Huge rookie regression. How bad has Derek Queen been this month as a rookie? Again, it's not to kill the kid. But when you put these kids out as starters, eventually things are going to catch up to them, and they absolutely have. For Derek Queen over the last month, 9 points, 8 rebounds, less than 1 block. He's shooting 44% from the field. It's not been good for Derek Queen lately. It's not been good. His mental part, he's breaking down mentally, as is Jeremiah Fears. And they've got to find that part of their games first before you're going to see statistical improvement. Because Fears over the last month, 13 points, 3 assists, 2 turnovers. He's shooting 29% from 3. That's a huge wall. And I think it's time for those guys to sit a little longer. Not to not get minutes. They should get minutes every night. But to play winning basketball, these guys have to learn that the mistakes that they're making, they can't keep making them. And the biggest ones are on the defensive end. And they're effort-based. They're not experience-based. It doesn't take experience to know you got to stay in front of people. It doesn't take experience to know you got to bend your knees on defense. It doesn't take experience to know you got to put your body on somebody when the shot goes up and box out. So the rookies have hit their wall. And as we've talked about, please, that's not unexpected, but it's bringing down the starting lineup. And it's not fair to these other 4 guys right now, Herb, Trey, Bey, Zion, who are all playing winning basketball. Your 2 other guys who are getting significant minutes have been dragging you down. So how do you evaluate this team? How do you decide what the direction is going to be? Because if you're deciding right now that Fears and Queen are the centerpieces and you're not going to rebuild, that if you're deciding that they're not going to be the centerpieces and you're going to keep going with Zion, Trey, Herb, and you're going to try to go out and trade for Ja, and you're going to do all this stuff, and you're going to try to double down and say we're going to be this team with the support from the rookies. If that's the case, then they don't need to start any more games. If you're deciding that for the future, you still want to build around Zion, and I'm not saying if that's the right choice or the wrong choice. All I'm saying is for the New Orleans Pelicans, if you're choosing to stick with Zion Williamson and Trey and all that, that's a choice of action. But if you do that, get the rookies out of the starting lineup for the rest of the season. They should continue to get minutes as long as they're with you, but they should not be starting. And I don't have a problem with that. They need to earn their minutes. That's what rookie seasons are about, earning your minutes. And if you as fans think that this Pelicans team has talent and with the right situation, this team could be a winning team, then those rookies need to learn that lesson. Because you can't have things given to you in the NBA. You can't. Those guys don't do well. The guys who are given everything, the guys who say that they should get minutes just because, it's not where it's at. And I have to give Borrego that credit for saying, you guys can't keep hurting us. You can't keep hurting us. It's one thing if you're not playing good basketball, you're just not making your shots. But right now, those guys are hurting the Pelicans when they're on the court. And these are the pains of a rookie season. But you cannot compromise what the other guys are doing, what the guys who are playing well right now are doing. And right now, every night, and it's been pretty consistent throughout this month, that these rookies are hurting the Pelicans. They're not bad rookies, but I think also if you're as we're evaluating all this and you're talking about potential trades, and I don't think that the Ja trade is going to happen. I just don't think it's going to happen during the season. I think if the Grizzlies move off Ja, they're going to wait to the offseason. And that's just my opinion. I don't think there's going to be any major frontline NBA players getting traded at the deadline. I don't think that I think there'll be a lot of role players moving, but I don't think any like the players that Giannis ain't moving, in my opinion. I don't see, I just don't see the major players going because of the financial realities of the league currently. And the fact that in the East in particular, there's a clear separation at the top. And in the West, it feels like there's also what is growing into a real separation at the top. The Nuggets may make a deal because they want to get some reinforcements around Jokic before they go into the playoffs, considering his injury and whatnot, but they've got a deep roster. Oklahoma City doesn't need to do anything other than get Jalen Williams healthy. But I think most likely what happens is some of these role players get moved. But the Pelicans don't have a lot of leverage in any of these circumstances. This idea that you're going to trade Jordan Hawkins, who you extended for no good reason, and a team's going to give you something for a guy who can't shoot. And I don't hear about his confidence because he was given minutes and given shots and he didn't make them. 20 plus minutes a night and he wasn't making shots. Hasn't made shots except for one stretch during his rookie year. You can go look at it game after game. How many can you find 2 games in a row where Jordan Hawkins shot 40%? 3. The Pelicans have so many problems in the backcourt, in the front court. This is a team that's just got nothing. This is Hooters because all the Pelicans got is wings. That's all the Pelicans got. Wings. They ain't got nothing in the backcourt. They ain't got nothing in the post. Like as far as like real difference makers. They got wings. That team is not going to win, not in this league anymore. So what is the ultimate direction? And that's where I think the Pelicans' problem is, and it has been the problem. We've talked about it. It feels like ad nauseum, but ultimately, what is the direction of this franchise? If you want to go in on it again and say we're going to win now, okay, but you got to make some big deals if you're going to do that. If you want to keep this group together and see if you can augment it for next season, okay, but you got to get off those bad deals immediately if that's what you want to do. If you want to rebuild, then you got to start tearing it down immediately. You cannot wait for some of these things until the offseason because you can't move 8 people in the offseason. Got to start it now. And you've got to have incremental progress. If the Pelicans start selling again that, this year we won 20-something games, next year we're going to win 40. Don't believe that stuff because it just doesn't happen like that. Have a real plan. Have a real plan because trying to get Ja is not a plan. That's a pivot. Because if you get Ja, what are you going to do with Ja, who can't shoot from three, Zion, who can't shoot, Herb, that can't shoot? What kind of lineup are you building then? Because you don't have enough rebounding. The reason Ja could work in Memphis, because you had Dylan Brooks playing defense, Triple J playing defense, all NBA defender, right? Defensive player of the year. Desmond Bain, knockdown shooter, but also could defend. That was a top 5 defensive team. You have, just because you pivot, you don't have enough assets to build the rest of that team, because whatever you give up for Ja, now you have to replenish that too. Your backcourt's still not going to be complete. You're still not going to have enough shooting. You're still talking about 2 guys in Zion and John, though Zion has played 22 straight games, which feels like, you know, Houston's lineup can't shoot. Well, the thing about Houston's lineup, they play elite defense and they can't get beat in transition. Pelicans don't do either of those. They're not going to play elite defense if 2 of the guys in your starting lineup are Zion and Ja. That's not going to be an elite defensive team. The roster has to complement those guys, and that's the problem. Just because you secure one really good player, if you don't have the roster to supplement them, it doesn't matter. The Clippers got plenty of talented players. Look where they are. Talent is, if you don't build the right roster, it doesn't matter what talent you have. Talent is not the key to building a team. Everybody in the NBA's got talent. Do you have the right talent and the right combination? And the Pelicans don't. They don't have enough length. They don't have enough athleticism. They don't have enough size. They don't have enough ball handling. They don't have enough shooting. They don't have enough distribution. There's so much that has to be done to make this team a winner. But at the same time, be encouraged over these last 2 games. There's real reason to enjoy those last 2 games. You saw really good offense against Memphis, and you saw very solid defense against San Antonio. So maybe you can get a late January All-Star break, post All-Star break bump. Maybe if there is a big move made, if you can shift some of these dead weights around, maybe the Pelicans can have a solid and interesting close to the season and be building towards something for next year. But Joe Dumars and Troy Weaver have to come out and say ultimately what the direction of this franchise is going to be. Are you still trying to build around Zion, or are you building around these rookies? But right now, the way everything looks, it continues to make what happened in the offseason look bad. The Pelicans lost the offseason. Like, we just have to admit that. They did a horrible job, and they've set the franchise back, with all things considered. But I would take these last 2 efforts. If this is the Zion Williamson you're going to get, if this is, you're going to continue to get this Trey Murphy for the rest of the season, if you're going to allow Yves Missi to play more minutes and impact this team on the defensive end, if Herb Jones can stay healthy, obviously you're not going to have an amazing close, but you can have a productive close to this season and really evaluate what you have. And I think that is the ultimate part of the rest of this season, is can you get a legitimate evaluation? And the best thing is for these guys to be healthy. But that $60 million that you guys sitting on the bench that ain't doing nothing, that has to go. There's no argument there. Let me check and see if we got any final questions I wanted to skip. I just want to hit this one. Kate Chaplain, 1990. If you're not moving Zay, why move Bey for another developmental player? I agree. If you're going to build around Zion, if you say that's what you're going to do, then you keep Bey. But the problem is you may have to utilize Bey to get rid of the bad contracts. That's the unfortunate reality. You got to give away something good to get rid of something bad. And that's the unfortunate reality. His contract and his ability makes him very appealing. So if somebody figures, I'll take the bad asset so I can get this one that's on a low deal, then that may be the only option you have. And unfortunately, that's where the Pelicans may be. All right, y'all. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for watching. Tomorrow night we'll be on after the game against the Thunder. We'll see if the Pelicans can go for 3 in a row. A third straight win would be impressive for this team. But shout out to all y'all. Appreciate you so much. Make sure you make sure you subscribe, and you can follow me, of course, on social media at DM Grub. Until the next time, this has been the Post Up right here on Boo Crew Media. Y'all have a great night.